Thanks for joining us for our online learning series. My name is Nicole Taylor, and if you are a friend of mine, and then you know that I just love to learn. So, this is actually my way to just connect with others who have a love and a passion for learning. And not only do I like to learn, but I also have some pretty amazing friends who know a lot of stuff. So, not only do I get to learn, but I also get to spend time with friends who are very knowledgeable as well. And so today we are actually going to spend some time with Miss Linda Johnson. You guys are going, I've learned so much from her. We worked together previously in the same district, and my mind was blown just by the things that she does in her classroom, or the things that she did in her classroom at that time. And so, what we're going to look at today is culturally responsive teaching, SEL, and the arts. When I worked with Miss Johnson, she was a music teacher, but I'm going to tell you that there was so much more than just singing going on in her classroom. And today she's going to just show us how she has used CRT strategies and SEL. What she's also taken standards from core content areas and how she uses that and infuses that with what she does in the art. So I'm going to stop, and we are going to be blown away by the Linda Johnson. So I will pass the mic.
Thanks so much, Nicole. I'm so excited to be here. And Nicole's so kind to say all those nice things about me. Nicole's brought a lot out in me, or I wouldn't be here doing this right now. So it's always good to have a Nicole Taylor in your life. Everybody needs to have one because she's full of awesomeness and she brings it out of everyone else. So Nicole, I can just share my screen. Okay.
Yes.
So let's see if we can get this thing started here. And I'm going to pull up my presentation so you can see what we're going to talk about today. Whoops, I don't want to share. Let's try that again. I want to present. Wrong button. Okay. All right, here we go. So today we're going to talk about culturally responsive teaching, SEL, and the arts. And I'll go ahead and just tell you who I am. I am an entrepreneur with many hats. So I have so many hats, I can't keep them all on my head. And if you ask me what I do, I probably couldn't tell you. I just have up here, I am a music educator. I taught in public school for over 23 years. I now teach piano lessons at my private music studio at Music Lovers in Duncanville, Texas. And I'm an arts integration specialist. I work with the Institute for, yeah, I know, because I have your son. And I'm also an arts integration specialist with the Institute for Arts Integration and STEAM. I'm a coach, a content producer for them. And then I'm an educational consultant. I still do clinics and what have you for music educators when they ask me to do that, because I specialized in elementary music education and also choral. So the one thing that makes me happy, though, is the ability to create, because all of these hats that I wear, they have that one common thread, and that common thread is creativity. And I remember when I was in high school and I got interviewed for some newspaper, they were highlighting seniors. And I was going through my scrapbook one day and I read this quote and I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I finally figured it out. And they asked me a question. And I said, I said, I've got to find a way to balance my academics and my music. I am so passionate about both of them and I cannot separate the two. And here I am now, finally. I'm still in music, and not only just music, but as an arts integration specialist, I get to share things about the arts in all of the areas, in dance and theater and visual art and music, and apply it to education and show other educators how to do it. So it took me about 30 years to figure it out, but I finally figured out how to be happy creating something that has the music and all the arts and also the academics. So I'm excited to share that with you today. So today what we're going to learn is we're going to learn how to transform your teaching using arts integration as an approach to learning. So, why the arts? And I saw this quote not too long ago by Felicia Rasheed. You know her as an actress, singer, and stage director. She says, before a child talks, they sing. Before they write, they draw. And soon as they stand, they dance. Art is fundamental to human expression. And so, and I thought about this. I was like, wow, she put music and art and dance. And then I thought about the drama. Babies know how to act. They know how to go. They know how to put that drama on because they can get you to move and pick them up and everything. So it's something that we do innately. The arts is part of our human expression and who we are. And since it's something natural that we do, we can pull from those things. So let's talk about arts integration. And by the way, if anybody wants to hop in and ask me a question or in the chat box, just let me know. Nicole kind of alert me to that if there's something that I need to know. But you're more than welcome to unmute yourself or what have you so we can go on. All right, so arts integration, what is it? So Susan Riley, she's the founder of the Institute for Arts Integration and STEAM, says that arts integration is an approach to teaching and learning through which content standards are taught and assessed equitably in and through the arts. And the key statement is content standards are taught and assessed equitably. And when you say that, we're talking about the arts content standards and also your core content standards. So you teach them equally and you assess them equitably. So that means one content area is never in service of the other. They are treated equally. And also it's an approach to learning. It's more like a strategy on how to teach what you already know. So why should we use arts integration? I'm going to give you 5 reasons. So the first reason is because arts integration is an approach that addresses the needs of all learners, and it has a positive impact on attitudes about learning. So if you think about it, I know that you can think about how people have different learning styles. You have the kids that like to talk a lot. You have the kids that need to move around. You have the kids that respond to music. You have kids that respond to dance. You have students that are visual. And so when you use arts integration, you're able to pull from those other areas that child is excelling at, whatever their natural gifts are. Because remember, we said at first that the arts is actually a basic part of human expression. So when you go through the arts with that approach, it's another access point for reaching our learners. And it also gives them a great attitude because it's something that is relevant, which goes to reason number 2. So it's going to give them a personal connection to learning. And when you have a personal connection to learning, it's going to increase your student engagement. It also increases your attendance in school, in your classroom. And given now, with everything being virtual or hybrid, student engagement is something that we really need to take a good look at and figure out how we can do it. You've got to find something that the students are interested in, something that will engage them. And I like to say, I have an acronym for it. It's called RISE, because you're going to rise to the occasion. Relevancy increases student engagement. So that personal connection and relevancy is so important, and arts integration will do that. Another reason why we should use it in the classroom is because arts integration promotes the use of 21st century skills. Okay, it's going to deepen the learning experience when students transfer their understanding material from one mode to another. It's so much of prior to the pandemic of teaching to the test, and now we're just teaching, right? It's like if there is no test, then we're finding out what it is that we really need to teach. And I remember some of my students saying, we're just studying for this test and we're tired of studying for the test. So when they came to my classroom, I would try to use arts integration as a music teacher, by finding out what were they learning in their classroom and drawing those things in and making it relevant. And I used to do a lot of science, language arts, and social studies, and then also writing. So I pretty much pulled in everything in there. Writing when we would do songwriting, social studies if we're talking about people in history and we want to write songs about them, the writing process, of course, and the composition process are very similar things as well. So I would pull all those things in, and then something a lot of people haven't thought of, the scientific process in the engineering process. I mean, like you have your ideas and you think about it, and then you test them out and you see if they work, right? And then if you don't get the results you want, then you go back and you do it again. Well, think about as a musician, what do we do with rehearsal? What do you do as an artist? It's like you start out with something and then it ends up being something else as you move along. And so as musicians, we're thinking, okay, this is what how we think it's going to come out with our kids, and this is how we plan our lesson, and then we try it out, and then we just keep going back and over. So it's like the engineering process, the scientific process, our rehearsal process that we have, and our creative process is very similar. And so we're going to be using creativity, we're going to be collaborating, we're going to use those critical thinking skills and communication. And when you do those things, it's meaningful, it's going to deepen the learning experience, and it's something that they're going to retain. And then also, there is research that shows and data that has shows that low performing students, diverse learners, and students with special needs show academic growth when you use arts integration in the classroom as an approach to learning. And so this right here will tie right into that culturally responsive teaching that I'm going to discuss later on. And then also, since we were talking about standardized test scores, excuse me, and improving grades, it also has research that shows that arts integration closes the achievement gap between low average and high rated students, and is directly linked to improved grades and standardized test scores. So back to Susan, what she says, and I love this quote: arts integration allows us to build chefs who make choices and not cooks who merely follow the recipe. Okay, so oops, I didn't mean to do that, but I don't know how to go back here. But before I move on to how we use it, I just think about anybody that works at a restaurant that's a cook. What are they doing? They're following the recipe, they're following the formula. They're not allowed to put their little extra sauce or seasoning in there. They can't do it. They're just a cook. And so when you use arts integration, now we're engineering chefs. Now we're teaching the kids, hey, you get to create it. Because what do chefs do? They create their own unique dishes that's different. And they get a chance to combine things and to try new methods and try new flavors and try new dishes and introduce it to people. And if they don't like it, they'll say, okay, well, maybe I need to add this or add that or take this ingredient out. And so that's what we want our students to be. We don't want them to be cooks. We want them to be chefs. So now that we know why we should use it, how do we use it? Okay, so we've got 3 easy steps. I say they're easy, but um, it's really a lot more into the step than what I have time to go into. Because I'm an arts integration coach, and we actually have a program with the Institute for Arts Integration. It's a year-long course that you take to get certified in it. So it's a lot into it. In our first few months of our course, or the first half of our course, actually has to do with aligning standards, and we work really hard so then our arts integration specialists are able to help people with this. But your first step is to find somebody to collaborate with, because true arts integration means that you have to find somebody to help you. And so, like, when I started doing it at my school, when I worked with Nicole, I reached out to the science teacher and I was like, hey, what are you guys doing? What are you doing that where are you struggling? And I was like, let's look at the data. What things do the kids need to know that they're struggling with, and how can I help? And so I went and collaborated with that teacher. Unfortunately, the teacher just kind of gave me the information. It was one kind of a one-way thing, so it wasn't much collaboration. It was me by myself the first time, and then I'd say, hey, I did this, what do you think? Oh, it's great. But there was really no back and forth. And then my second year, I got to work with Nicole, and then I got to work with another science teacher. And Nicole was a blended learning specialist in our district. So she helped me with the technology because I wanted to bring in technology with the Music Technology Club. And then the science teacher was helping me, and we started working on the types of energy with melts. And so with Nicole helping me getting the technology going, and then with the science teacher there, because it's like I don't know everything about science. I am not the expert. Matter of fact, science is like my absolute worst subject. And to tell you about standardized test scores, when I took the ACT in high school, I scored so high on the science part. I was getting letters from these Ivy League schools about engineering. I'm like, I'm a music person. I don't, but that's why I say standardized tests are not, they don't tell you anything. That was not my thing. I didn't even like science. I didn't even like it. It was just too, it's like, if I can't see it, I really don't know if it's there, especially like biology and stuff like that. And then I was like, how do you know this really happened? So for me, I was too busy questioning it to really like it. And it was just too complicated. I didn't like it at all. And so the irony is, I actually love to take music and science and put it together because there's some relevancy there with physics and with acoustics and with sound. And then when I found that personal connection, now I can teach music and science and put them together. So now I like science, but I didn't before until I actually made that connection myself. But that's your first step. So find somebody you can collaborate with. Then what you have to do is to select two standards and align them with common vocabulary, with verbs and cognitive demand. And that's the hardest part. So I've hyperlinked this vocabulary thing here and see what happens. So this is from the Institute for Arts Integration and STEAM. And this came out in, this is a pretty old article, but I found this. Here is an example of arts and math common vocabulary, and just take a glance at some of these things. And then we have K through 5. Look at, well, we'll go to 5th grade because I'm actually going to talk about that later. Look at these words: sequence. Okay, there is a word for sequence in music, and there's also sequence in math. Sequence in music is when you play the same pattern, but you started on a different place. You started on a different note. And that's what that is. So if you think about Beethoven, and actually I have my piano, I told Nicole I was gonna play my piano for here. Okay. Matter of fact, so you hear that? Da, 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 da. That started on a G, and then I'm gonna play the same pattern, but I started on a different note. That's called a sequence. Okay. So you know what it sounds like. Well, you can actually put that on a graph and you can map it. What is it? I'm trying to remember the slope and the mx plus. I don't know math. That's something else I'm not good at, but I do math and music. But you actually take the slope and you add x plus 1 or something. I can't remember how it works, but I actually have a lesson plan I'm going to share with you so you can see how that actually works. So, and also in saying that, you don't have to be an expert in the area of art. If you're a general teacher and you're like, I don't do arts well, but if you played an instrument or you were in choir when you were in school, then maybe you might gravitate towards music. If you were good at art or you like art, maybe you might gravitate towards that. If you like to dance, and it doesn't mean that you had to take tap or ballet, but if you're good at movement, that might be something you want to do. And then as far as theater, if you're a good speaker, you're outspoken and you're really entertaining with your kids, that might be an area you want to go to. So you kind of will eventually gravitate towards what you're good at. But anytime I do these, I have to get someone to help me to make sure that I understand my vocabulary words. But that's just first through K through 5. And I'm not sure. Okay, that's only K through 5. Somewhere I think there's one with 6 through 12. But when you line up your vocabulary, you begin to see that things are quite similar, and that is your starting point. So once you got your two standards and you align them, then you're going to have to write and execute a lesson plan that addresses and assesses both the arts and the core standards equitably. Notice it addresses them and they assess them. So this is a lesson plan I did a long time ago. This is like, I wrote this, I don't know, like 3 years ago before I knew everything that I know now. So this was like my first attempt. But what I want you to notice is the duration is just 2 class periods. Because what happens a lot, educators are like, I don't have time for a big project. We don't want you to do a big project. What you want to do is say, hey, what am I teaching that my kids are struggling with? And how can I plug into the arts with something else that they understand to see if this will give them another access point for learning? That's all it is. And so in this case, I talk in my overview about the common vocabulary words, sequence and symmetry. And you know, guys know what symmetry is, right? So you got the line of symmetry and it's equal on both sides. There's symmetry in music on the graph. Okay, and so students are going to use their understanding of what they know in geometry and algebraic patterns. And so notice I have the word symmetry and sequence. Those words were on that vocabulary sheet I just showed you. And they're going to compose a short composition. That's not really phrased very well, but they're going to compose or write a short composition, and they're going to show retrograde. Retrograde is reverse melodic pattern. Guess what that is in math on a graph? It's reflection. Retrograde and reflection, same thing, just different words, but they're similar. So, and then sequence, shifting the melodic pattern up or down the music staff. That's the same thing. I want to say translation. I think that's what that is in math too. So the students are going to take their understanding of that and express it to the art. So I lined up these standards, and actually I went ahead and did two. This is actually core content, but you can use the Common Core, but you can also use your state standards as well if you need to, whichever one works for you or whatever you're using in your district. But here talks about recognizing a line of symmetry. And this one here, second one, talks about generate a number or shape pattern that follows a given rule. Okay, and that's how we're going to actually move things up and down the staff. And then the fine arts standards is just generating musical ideas, such as rhythms, melodies, and simple accompaniment patterns. Here's the word right here, patterns. And that's what we're looking at. So your big idea is symmetry and sequence in math appears visually and orally in music notation. And our question is, how can we use mathematical symmetry and sequence to expand a musical idea? So a musical idea is like this. Oh, I can't play from this way. I can't remember how it goes. That one. Y'all know that, right? That's for Elise, right? So for Elise, that's the main idea. We call that a musical motif. That's a little pattern. It keeps showing up in the song over and over again, right? So we want to create a very simple pattern. What we're going to do, we're going to give kids a menu. This is so simple that you actually can do that. If you know nothing about music, you can actually do this. Okay. So anyway, they're going to identify the lines of symmetry and sequences in math. And then they're going to look for the same concept in symmetry in familiar songs and tunes. Familiar songs and tunes. And then during the lesson, they're going to create a way to show musical lines of symmetry and sequences in a graph. And then afterwards, their main idea or their main event is they're going to transfer the concept of symmetry and sequence in math to pitches and the staff and expand a 4-beat, just 4 beats. And guess what? That's 4 notes. 4 notes. That's it. And they're going to expand that into a larger musical idea. They're going to take those 4 notes and they're going to do all kinds of little mathematical equations with them. But the whole idea is, I think I gave a title to this. Musical math, the staff is a graph. Okay. And that's what it is. I like to rhyme too. I can't help that myself with that. So anyway, look at your vocabulary words. Symmetry, sequence, graph, retrograde, pitch, pentatonic, staff, and meter. So I'm not going into notice I'm not going into technique about how to play music correctly and all the musical terms. I am using, except for the word pentatonic, which is basically a 5-note scale. Okay. Staff, that's your hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Meter, it's got 4 beats, so that's pretty numerical. Pitch is the actual note you're doing. Retrograde, that is when we flip the music backwards, but that's also reflection in math. And we have the graph and the staff are going to go together. Symmetry and sequence, those are also going to be interchangeable with what we're going to do on music. So the materials that we use is you can use staff paper, but there is a, Nicole, help me out if I'm saying this right. Is it a plugin or add-on for Google? You know how you can have those little add-ons? It's called a, what is it called?
It could be an add-on, it could be an extension. Tell me what it is and I'll let you know.
Oh, it's called Flat. It's on Google. Google
Okay, I'll
Flat.
find it and I'll put it in the chat. Flat.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
So you can actually use Google Flat, and it comes with your Google, and you can use that to actually record it. And even if your student doesn't know where the notes are, they can actually place it on the staff and hit the play button. It'll play the notes, so they can actually hear it. So it's a it will allow you to understand the music with the app actually knowing, hey, this is an E or this is an F or what have you. Because what we're looking at is lines and spaces on the staff, and we're actually looking at the graph that way. And so then Lean on Me, that's another example. Okay, I went up, I went down, right? If you look it on the staff, I'm going to go up and then I'm going to come down. And it's actually, you could take that piece of paper and you could fold it in half and you're going to have a line of symmetry, because this is, I'll go ahead and sing. I didn't plan on doing this, but I'm going to sing do, re, mi, fa, right? Now I'm going to come backwards. Fa, mi, re, do. That's symmetry, right? You heard it. And just imagine what it would look like on the staff. That's why I said the staff is a graph. So kids get to hear it first and they're like, oh yeah. And then I give them some boom whackers. These are little tubes that I have, and they're tuned musically, and they can actually see the science behind it. So now it's science behind this, right? But notice that's not my area. That is maybe like a secondary standard, but it's not my focus. But I've got science in here when I start doing that as well. So now I'm not going to go through the whole lesson. Okay. You can actually access this lesson on my website where I have my portfolio. And I think I have a link to that. And then you can just go in there and find it. But I actually have, this is what I want you to see here, the criteria for my rubric. Okay. So notice, did the student demonstrate an understanding of mathematical symmetry? Did they demonstrate an accurate understanding of mathematical sequences? Then, were they able to create a graph that demonstrated the understanding of the application of symmetry and sequence to music? And did they create a composition that demonstrated the ability to apply the knowledge of symmetry and sequence in music? So notice I have gone ahead and made sure that I have assessed everything in both content areas equitably. And that's one thing you have to do. So here's this actual song. And so I actually had a set of instructions of what the students were supposed to do. And so they had a 4-beat melodic pattern. And so I told them you can use anything in the pentatonic scale. So it's just 5 notes, right? And so I said pick 4 notes, any 4 notes. So they could go on flat and they could pick four notes and go ahead and drag the mouse up there. And so they picked these 4 notes, G, A, and E, G. That's your 4-beat melodic pattern. This 8-measure song is going to go, it's going to come from following directions in math, but you're going to put it on the staff. So retrograde, music, reflection in math. And if you can see, if I took those 2 measures, like, see, I'm gonna see if I can do this here. If I take this one right here, and then I take this one right here. And actually you can see it 2 ways. G, A, E, G. Now it did G, E, A, G. I just flipped it, right? That's symmetry. And then you could literally fold that in half and those notes would be on top of each other. Okay. So then the next step was sequence. So in translation, which is math, I added +1. So I took all of these notes right here, and this is a graph. I just moved them up 1. I moved them up 1. So now I have a new sound. And I forgot to play the first one. So let me go back. So here's your original pattern. Now I'm gonna play it backwards. This is what it sounds like backwards. Now I'm going to take the same pattern that was over here and I'm going to move it up one. And then I'm going to flip it around backwards. Okay. Then I'm going to go back to where I was. And then I'm going to do this. So this is A pattern, because this pattern here and this right here, these are the same notes. And this one is actually, even though it is moved, it sounds different because it's not. So we would call this right here part B. And then we all learned in our music class that the end, or a special tail section, is called a coda. And so the coda, now I let them have their own. So I made them follow the rules, right? So I'm like, the last two measures, write what you want. The only thing, you have to end on C, which is home base. That's the tonic. And it has to be in the pentatonic scale, because I told them they could only use 5 notes. And so this person did this. Okay. And so, and I actually had this originally, I think I just scanned this and I don't even know what happened to my original that I had. But actually on my original, there was a link and you could actually hear that played out for a demonstration on that. But that's actually, this is really technically a STEAM lesson because it's math. But when I use the word arts in when you do math, and when you do STEAM, you're actually doing everything from inquiry based, like you have some type of question that you're looking at, and that you're investigating. But so this actually was a STEAM lesson, but I went ahead and used math. And I like to use the term arts integration because with arts integration, you are looking at everything. You can include language arts, you can use history, you can use other things that are not in STEM. And so that's why I always do that and call it that. Okay, so some of your resources that I have here for you, and would be the Institute for Arts Integration in STEAM. And here it's a lot of free things that are in here that you can use. And it talks about the programs that we have, but here's where you want to go is the free resources. If you want to do the membership, the accelerator membership, there is a cost to that, but what you get for that, you get everything in here. You can go to all the conferences that we have in the winter and the spring. We actually had a fall one, and then there's actually courses that are on here that you can get professional development for. You can get CEUs. We're accredited through ISET. I probably didn't pronounce that right, but it's actually, you can get these courses and staff development that will count towards renewing your certification. So that's one of the ones I have. The Kennedy Center for the Arts, and then also the National Core Art Standards. And then I just did the Smithsonian Open Access, but actually the Smithsonian has so many things. This is where you can actually use some of their pictures and artwork, but you can go, they have the folkways where you can access music, and just Google Smithsonian. There are so many free resources that you can use to help you pull things together. And then back to the Institute of Arts Integration and STEAM, there's actually classroom strategies. And the reason why I pull that in is because a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm not ready for a whole lesson plan. And not only that, things being the way they are, I don't know how you are collaborating with your friends, since some of you aren't even going to school, you're at your house. So if you're not able in a position where you can collaborate with anyone, these are free classroom strategies. You can look at all these subtopics and all of these different things that's there. To your higher order thinking, it's talking about different strategies. 13 strategies for making thinking visible in the classroom. So strategies are not full-blown arts integration lessons, but it's a way to go into what we like to call artful thinking. So that's those right there. So let me move on to the next part, because I did say I was going to talk about cultural responsive teaching in the arts. I wanted to explain to you what arts integration was. So now hopefully you already can see why using the arts in your classroom and as you integrate it with your core content is going to be culturally responsive. First of all, it's student centered. It's going to promote student voice and choice because you're getting to be creative. It also supports diversity and inclusion. And one of the things that I like to talk about, even with diversity and inclusion, is that with culture responsive teaching, a lot of people think that it's all about multicultural education, it's all about social justice, and you can address those things through the arts. But actually, cultural responsive pedagogy, according to Zaretta Hammond, she wrote Cultural Responsive Teaching in the Brain. Um, when you look at it that way, actually, those are kind of like subheadings to what cultural responsive teaching really is. The whole purpose of culturally responsive teaching is to reach those students who have different needs. So, different needs, yes, a person's background, a person's culture, a person's race or ethnicity, their socioeconomic status, all of those things, whether they're male or female, their gender or their sexual preference, all of those, their religion. You've got all of those things that have to do with being culturally responsive. And so you have this diversity in your classroom. You want to make sure that diversity is in your classroom, and you also want to make sure that everybody is included. And so, and I cannot remember where I got this quote from to save my life, but I do know someone was talking about the difference between diversity and inclusion. And she stated that diversity is being invited to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. And so, what you want to do is you need to ask your students to dance. And when you're asking them to do that, when you're reaching them through the arts, through arts integration, that's when you're asking them to dance and to do more. And they have to feel safe. They have to feel like it's a safe place so students can engage in learning. Okay. And so now I want to go ahead and share with you a couple of things. These are projects that I work, and this is also on my website. I did the composition process to show how arts integration. That did it for 3 years. As I was in Lancaster for 5 years, but the last 3 years I was there, I started doing these arts integration projects. And so they did music, writing, and science standards, and we were assessing them equally. They got student voice and choice. There were, I remember one time I was showing my principal a video. I was like, look what my kids are doing in classes. I always like to share. It's like, look what my kids did in class. They're doing this and they're doing that. And she looked and she's like, that's so and so. He doesn't ever do anything for anybody. He's participating. I was like, yeah. And even in my class, he was not participating when I taught it like a normal class. But then when I started doing the arts integration strategies, he wanted to be involved and he was contributing. And the last project that I did, I had students who were just like, when we were brainstorming, they were like literally shouting over each other. They were all excited and they were really engaged. And I saw students come out with things that I had never seen them come out with before. Students who were quiet were talking and they were involved because they realized it was something that everybody had a piece of and that everybody could do because it was something that everybody could access. And so this is my favorite part though. 100% of the students, when I tell you, I'm not exaggerating, they had a more positive attitude towards writing. You know, a lot of our kids don't like to write, and they consider themselves content creators rather than just consumers of music and entertainment. And that's what you want to move your students to. It was so funny. We had a school song that we would use at I guess our Fun Fridays, or I can't remember what they were called. And they decided to change the song because I guess the artist had done some things that weren't very nice, and so they decided, nah, we need to change that song because of this particular artist. So they were looking for one, and they picked a song. I don't even remember the name of this new artist, but the kids that were in my class, they're like, we don't like this song. I was like, why not? Miss Johnston, it just uses two chords. These kids are like analyzing music. It's just two chords because I had taught them. They said, we can do better than that. Why don't we write our own song and give it to the principal and let her see it? And so things got crazy at the end of the year when they wanted to do it. So we had started, but we didn't finish. But the students were like, we can do better than that. we can make our own. And I'm hearing kids that, I'm a writer, I can do this. We can. I said, oh, so y'all think y'all are writers? They're like, yes, we are writers. And so that's what you want to do, is to encourage your kids to say, hey, I can do this. I don't have to depend on somebody else to feed me the entertainment. I can be my own entertainment. So I guess I could probably drop the link to this, or on my website. It's lindajohnson.org. Um, but just my name.org is my website. But here's what, when I first started, I have a process video, how the kids started writing by themselves. And they did this song actually probably when they finally got to it, it was like an hour after school. And these two girls here, they were writing and coming up with everything after they'd done their studying. Here's a video that they created, and it ended up going to the Majestic Theater. We would do this every year, the Fine Arts Department. Next thing I know, I'm in a meeting. It's like, we're gonna put your song in our production. I'm like, what? Because they were talking about outer space or something, and they found out about this song we did. And then next thing you know, the honor choir is singing this song, and the kids created their own choreography, and they just went with it, and just started with 4 kids in a class, 4 kids who had a nice little melodic pattern. And I said, hey, I'm doing the STEM Expo. Would you be interested in coming after school a few times and let's put something together? And it turned into this big thing I had not imagined. It just ran away. Now, this is a year I had Nicole with me. And this is when we did our music technology. And we had 3 different songs that came out of it. There's 5 types of energy, but we made it through 3 songs. I didn't realize how daunting a task it was to come up with that many songs. So we had the one that covers everything, and the kids did their own video. And then this one, and these 2 girls followed my instructions to the T. And when I tell you this sounds like a Taylor Swift song, like every time I present this song, people are I don't want to, they start singing it. So it's called Mechanical Energy. And then these are 2 boys that they don't sing. They're in theater, and they just did a rap. They did a rap back. They kept arguing. So I said, why don't y'all just do a rap battle about the types of energy? And they came up with that, and they did it in GarageBand. And this, we did the 4-chord pop bass line, and this one they created their own music video. So you see, it went way far into that. And then the last year I did a night at the museum, and all of us got together, theater, art, dance, and music. And we came up with a whole night at the museum where people came to visit. And the music part was the kids did the layers of the earth and learned how to layer music just like the layers of the earth. Um, and then they wrote a song using a 12-bar blues pattern. And then they wrote a song called Real Good Men. And they talked about 4 of them. And we do this thing called rhyming couplets. And you can kind of see it says, Frederick Douglass, a self-taught man, escaped from slavery, so he made a plan. He wrote books and speeches to abolish slavery. He wanted blacks and whites to live in harmony. Oh, Frederick was a real good man. And so they start talking about the real good men who fought for justice, and they do it again. And it's real bluesy. And they made their choreography. And then, of course, the girls are like, well, we got to talk about the women. So then they did, they spoke the truth. And so, and they did that boogie woogie style, like those kind of chords right there. So they did those. So, I did that wrong. Let's see. There you go. That one. That was a style that they used. And the other ones, they were like, I'm trying to remember. And just 4 chords, and I taught them how to do it. So these kids are making their own music, and it was a great experience. I love working with kids doing those, but they were engaged in their learning. So culturally responsive teaching resources. So you've got Zaretta Hammond at culturally responsive teaching in the brain. Teaching tolerance talks about social justice. Culturally responsive teaching strategies. This one here, it talks about 15 culturally responsive teaching strategies. And that I found this resource is pretty neat. This one talks about, it has like 15 culture responsive teaching strategies and examples, and some of the basic things that we need to know about CRT in general is in there. And on this right here, the danger of a single story, that is, I know I'm going to butcher her name, is Chimamanda Adichie. I think that's how it's. I'd probably butchered her name. I had to actually do a culture responsive teaching in the arts. We made a video. We did on, it's actually one of the courses on the institute, and I had to get Google and pronounce saying her name like 5 times before I actually did my recording with the teleprompter, because so I know I butchered her name. But she talks about um, this single story, how we get a single story and then we make a judgment from that. And so this talks about the narrative and the cultural narrative and who gets to write it. And so when kids are getting to have student voice and choice with culture responsive teaching, when we're using the arts with that, we are allowing them to rewrite the cultural narrative. They get to own it. Nobody is going to tell them how things should be or how things are, because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Students are going to believe what they see and what they hear. But when you give them a chance to have their own voice and their own choice, then they're able to express those things. And that's what arts is about. It's about self-expression. So, and the other thing on this is the dimensions of equity. Right here, this is where we talk about multicultural social justice education. But when you look at culture responsive pedagogy, your main thing here is independent learning. And that's what true culture responsive pedagogy is about. Yes, social justice is important. Yes, multicultural education is important. But the highest level, like if you think about looms, the highest level of having equity in your class is going to be teaching with culturally responsive pedagogy, where you're focused on improving the learning capacity of the students and about the cognitive aspects of teaching. And so, and then once again, we talk about pushing back on the dominant narratives about people of color. So, and then let's talk about SEL real quick. So, SEL in the arts, one of the facets of SEL is that it promotes self awareness. And of course, arts is how we express ourselves. So, arts is going to help you with your SEL, because you're going to be engaging students in developing skills that help them understand their own emotions, their thoughts, and their values. And so that's what's great about that. It helps students understand also how their actions affect others. So the SEL framework with Castle, this is a resource that you can use, and you can see what SEL is about and the core competent areas. But self-awareness and self-management, those are two of the things that is really going to help you. And then also your relationship skills, because in a lot of the arts, there is a lot of collaboration that students have to do. My students had to learn how to work together when they were composing. And even though things are virtual to some degree, there are still ways. You see all over the internet how people in the arts are combining and how they're working together with technology. I know in music, for example, Soundtrap is a place where students can actually collaborate, and they can actually share and do it together at the same time, almost like a Google Doc. They can both be in that piece of music. It's a digital audio workstation, and they can do that. When people are doing an improvisation, like in theater, that's relationship skills. So it's a lot of things that are going on. Social awareness also occurs too, depending on what area you may be studying. If you're doing visual arts and you're actually, or maybe music, and you're studying music from certain type of genres, certain types of periods, and the content of the lyrics, or also with artwork and what that meant. So those are a couple of examples. Dance, as well. It's everywhere. So that's important. And then a big thought. I actually before the pandemic hit, I used to work with Big Thought as an instructional partner, and this talks about how to create quality in a social distance programming, and how different things that you can do with your climate, your engagement. But the Big Thought is really big. Whoops, I'm sorry. Is really big on creative choices, and that's what I wanted to focus on here. allowing students to use their imagination and explore being creative in the moment, and allowing them to work together with their creativity, appropriate for your social distance confines. And your work should be set up to allow students to explore and make choices that add to that content area in a unique way. So those are things that we need to think about that will help with the SEL for our students, is the creative choices that they make. And then this is an article from the Institute for Arts Integration and STEAM that has to do with mandalas. And it talks about, as I remember in Big Thought, we talked about zones of regulation. And so it talks about how that student is feeling. There's a check-in. You can actually do those things. The red zone is heightened states of alertness, and then you have yellow, green, and blue. Green is just kind of like, I'm just chill. I'm ready to learn. I'm happy. And blue is kind of like, depressed. Yellow is like, I'm heightened, but I'm getting there. And then red is, you need to watch out for the red. And so they can actually take those through art, and they can color their mandala. You can see right here how you can do that. So this is a free resource that's on here. And notice how it says the elements of line can be used to create a map. That's an art element right there. Okay. And look, rotational symmetry. So rotational symmetry, that's your math concept there. And so anyway, that's just an example I wanted to share with you as a resource. And I think that's it. That's all I have. If anybody has any questions, this is my website, lindajohnson.org. And it's easy to find me on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and I even believe Instagram. Just Linda Johnson, MSC. MSC stands for Match Studio and Consulting, which is the name of my consulting business. So that is all I have. Are there any questions? Or Nicole, come jump back in.
This was so good. I just told them in the chat, I have all the tabs open, like all the tabs, because it was so good. And even as you were talking, I was like, she left this out. She left that out, because she just does so much, and she does it so well, because you're so passionate about kids not only having an experience with the arts, but being, kids being able to take that love of the arts and infuse that into their core content area as well. So thank you so much. I have so many tabs open that I'm not going to close, because I need that stuff, because I want to share that. So thank you guys so much. Yeah, they just said, would you share the Big Thought? Um, do we have access to the links that you shared with us? I tried to,
How do I do that? I have my presentation.
if you want to share the link to the Big Thought, I tried to catch all of the links and put them in the chat, but I didn't
Okay.
catch the Big Thought.
Oh, okay. Well, I stopped my share. Let me go back in here and
Yeah, if you'll put that in the chat, then I will just go ahead, and yeah, that'd be great, because I didn't see.
I don't know what I did something. I have no idea. Oh, resume share. I'm trying to get back to it. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't remember what
I
it was
can't get back to
called.
it. What did I do? Okay, I'm trying to get back to this. Okay, here we go. Create
Yeah.
quality and that one. Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
got to
missed
move all this
that.
stuff my way.
I missed that, and I missed the last article. I got the SEL framework. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is good stuff.
Yay. Okay, that, and then what else? I dropped it in there. What else do you need?
And then the article that came after that as well.
The
Yes. Yeah.
this one. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of great stuff on there, and you think it's just mostly arts educators on that website, and actually it's a whole lot of content. There are actually schools around the country that's their arts integration schools, or they've actually had schools. I'm trying to think. It's Kennedy Center has what they call the turnaround art schools, and they actually go to some of these schools that are low performing, and they actually um, use the arts intentionally to be culturally responsive with those students, and you see the attendance go up, you see the test scores go up, the grades go up, the engagement go up. You see different kids, different places, and schools just turn completely around when the arts are integrated.
And I know when I was an instructional coach, I would always try to pair the core content teachers with the arts or the electives teachers, because those are the classes kids want to go to. They they want to get they want to go there, and when they get there, I mean, those teachers generally don't have a lot of behavior issues. That's what I was noticing at the time when I was a coach. And so I was like, hey, whatever you're doing, core teachers, we need to get together so that we can marry. And so a lot of the things you were talking about, giving kids voice and choice, letting them tell you what works, letting them have options and choices, and bring in things that were important to them. I know those were a lot of the things that we learned as core content teachers just by pairing. And as you were talking too, I'm like, we're in the building together, but how often do we actually get together to learn from each other? Because the chat, I don't know if you have time to go back and look at the chat. We were like, we never thought of that. Like, these are just great things, and how easy, I mean, how easy you make it seem, because the arts, that's what you do. Like, that's what you know. And
Right.
so if that's your wheelhouse, that's where you know, where you live and breathe. The math teacher, that's what she lives and breathes. And so putting those things together, you have no choice but to see successful students.
Yeah, I
And
had to
so
teach
that was
language arts one year, and ninth grade, and I took my kids. We did our poetry unit. I took them down to the piano in the choir room, and the other teachers are like, "What are you doing?" You know, and we were talking about resolution, and we were talking about, I think they had taken Hotel California, and how it didn't have, you can't leave. You know, you can check out, but you can never leave. And so I showed them music, and I said, "Hey, this is a cadence, and it wants to keep going back home, and that's why it keeps going around and around. But here's a ballad, and it has an ending cadence." And they were like, "Wow," you know. And my kids, they loved it, and I had all of them engaged. And so, and the other teachers like, "How do you do that?" But I've just done it naturally. Literally all my life, I've done that, and it's just something that I've been blessed to be able to do, and I'm glad to share it with others.
and not just do it, honey, but do it well. Do you hear me?
Thanks, Nicole.
Do it well. I am just like, I'm not only a fan, I'm also a member of the club because I've been able to teach with you. And she's also my son's teacher, piano teacher right now, his virtual piano teacher. And so I've been able to see firsthand. So thank you so much. I feel like this could have been like a 2 or 3 day workshop, because there's so many good nuggets that we were able to take from this session today. And in the chat, people are just saying thank you, and this was so
Thank you.
good. Um, so good. There is a question that says,
Mhm.
do you have any thoughts on the gender implications of your work?
The gender implications of my work as far as culturally responsive teaching. Yeah, I mean that,
Um, uh,
or am I is that what the question is about? Yeah, it helps.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I mean, that's what culture responsive teaching is. It's going to impact, and it's going to help all of our learners, regardless of, and I think I did mention that as well. It extends beyond just race and ethnicity, because that's what a lot of people look at. It does have to do with gender preference. It does have to do with religion. It does have to do with socioeconomic status. It has to do with blended families and single parent families and all of these things. Everybody brings these things to the table, and that's their background. And so they are taking in the knowledge and the information you give them with those things in their minds, and that's what's shaping how they learn. So I hope I answered that right.
Well, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate you giving of yourself today on a Saturday. And she's also teaching piano classes today. Busy, busy woman. Thank you so much. Um,
Thank
Jen Laban is going to actually wrap up our month of November with organization, productivity, and workflow ideas for teachers. Jen is amazing. She is a teacher out of the Chicago area. And if you are, she said we're going to get nerdy. So if you are a teacher that loves organization, productivity, workflow, I know we need that. Sometimes I need it more than others. Then join us Monday at 5 o'clock, and she's going to give us a few tips and tricks to help us stay organized. I want to remind you guys that Jen will wrap up November, but I know we have a few things scheduled for December, and then we'll regroup for January. But you never have to miss a session. I have a monthly newsletter that I send out along with things that I like to share. Also, just I have an amazing network group of friends in my PLN who love to share as well. So you can join the monthly newsletter and you will stay in the know so that you can continue to learn and grow as well. Today was phenomenal. Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. I really appreciate it. Again, I want to say thank you. Feel free to connect online because I will share this along with the resources, and I'll also make sure that I share Ms. Johnson's contact information so that you can contact her as well. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, or feel free to shoot me an email if you need anything else. And then this recording, along with the other online learning series, will be on YouTube. I mean, you can find that at that bit.ly /YouTube Nicole. So thank you so much. And I'm seeing people in the chat saying thank you. This was so good. I wanted to say thank you again in another way. I have a new project. This is my new baby. This is the third period box. And so this is a monthly thank you to teachers. I feel like teachers, that's the hardest job in a district in a normal year. We're not even going to talk about this year, everything that teachers are having to do this year. So I have a new teacher sub box, and maybe you don't want to do the subscription. Maybe you just need to pat yourself on the back for December. Treat yourself, whatever that looks like. Treat yourself. And so I would love to share this new project with you guys. It's called Third Period. It is stuffed. Like this first box is literally like stuffed with things that teachers have recommended that they would love to just get on a whim. Some things are practical, some things are, and all of the things will be a great addition to your workday or your after work day as well. And so you can check out that project at thirdperiod.fun. You can also find it on social media at Third Period Box. And so that's on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. And because you made it to the end of our session today, which was so great, I feel like we could have just kept going. It was so good. Because you made it to the end of our time today, you can use the code Third Period Fun, and you can save $10 off of your first box. So hopefully you guys will take advantage of that. I want to pat you on the back. I want to help you treat yourself. So hopefully you will check that out and you will take advantage of that. So as we leave today, I would love to know in the chat, what is one thing that you will do as a result of our learning today? I know I'm digging into that SEL framework. I was blown away by that. And I'm going to dig into the Big Thought resource because I'm always looking at things like, how can I use that to support teachers? But also, you know, I'm working from home and homeschooling. Like, mama needs all the help she can get too, because I'm playing teacher every day as well. So I'm just like, how can I use these things as well? So thank you so much. Marvy is going to look into arts integration site and level 1 certification. So many good things that we can continue to explore. You know, I was already a Miss Johnson fan before today, but I think you might have took me up a couple notches today. So I just want to thank you so very much. And thank you guys for joining today. This recording will be on our YouTube channel because I feel like this is something I'm going to have to go back through and watch and pause as well. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope that you are able to enjoy the rest of your Saturday.